Post-deployment, my buddy's ex stole his car, had him beat up, but a savvy Karen helped him reclaim it while exposing her lies. This incident took place around 2008. My friend Brock had completed a decade of service in the military. He initially enlisted in the Marines, but switched to the Army for the final 4 years before purchasing a house in Texas. After his discharge, he took on various jobs until he secured a position with a repossession service. He worked there for a year and accumulated numerous outrageous stories, but this particular one stands out most, as he assisted a fellow soldier in seeking retribution against a malicious ex-girlfriend. Brock was discussing matters with his supervisor, whom I will refer to as Karen. This specific Karen possessed many typical Karen characteristics, yet she was ultimately a positive influence, if you can believe it. During their conversation, they noticed a young man enter the office. It was immediately apparent that he had 2 black eyes and an arm in a sling. The young man's name, which I regrettably never learned, will be referred to as Ben. He inquired how difficult it would be for them to assist him in repossessing his car. Karen called her daughter, whom I'll call Karen Jr., and asked her to bring Ben a cup of coffee. Karen then requested Ben to share his story. Ben began by explaining that he had just returned from deployment. He had been dating a local girl living near the well-known Fort Hood, which, by the way, was not the best decision prior to his deployment. Thanks to an earlier tour, he had acquired a used black Dodge Charger, which he cherished immensely. He elaborated that shortly after obtaining the car, he had met the local girl, whom I will call Morgan for the sake of the narrative. Morgan often begged to drive his vehicle, but he consistently declined. As he was preparing for his deployment, Morgan repeatedly asked if she could borrow the car, but he continued to say no. After much persistence, he finally gave in, but only on the condition that she would take care of his apartment until he returned from his rest and relaxation leave. She agreed. Ben departed for his deployment while Morgan looked after his place. Upon returning for leave, he found his apartment spotless. He retrieved his car from storage and drove to see Morgan. He spent a few days with her before handing her the keys and heading back to his home state to visit family before resuming his deployment. When he returned from duty again, he encountered nothing but chaos. As he entered his apartment, he discovered a film of dust covering nearly every surface. It seemed as if no one had been there for months. When he checked his bedroom, he found it in complete disarray, with all his drawers rifled through and overturned. He attempted to contact Morgan but received no response. He located his hidden safe and discovered it was untouched. He retrieved his spare key from the safe, called a friend, and the two of them went to Morgan's. Upon arriving at Morgan's place, he noticed a car that he initially did not recognize, but as they drew closer, he realized it was his beloved Charger. Morgan had painted it hot pink and added 24-inch spinning rims. He tried the key out of curiosity, and the lights flickered as it unlocked. While his friend laughed, Ben approached the front door and Morgan answered. He inquired about what she had done to his car, to which she replied, "It's my car now." Ben walked away and climbed into his hot pink disaster. As he started the engine, 4 large men emerged from Morgan's house, one wielding a baseball bat, and pulled Ben from his vehicle. They proceeded to assault him in the driveway until his friend intervened, brandishing his concealed carry pistol. Ben was then taken to the hospital. I am honestly uncertain if the police were contacted during this incident. I would assume so, but even then, Ben mentioned that his friend drove by Morgan's house multiple times while he was hospitalized at random intervals, yet the car was never there. Karen gazed at Ben for a moment before requesting the paperwork. Ben handed it to her, and a smile spread across her face. She then asked Ben for Morgan's phone number. Ben provided it, unaware of the events that were about to unfold. Karen handed the phone to Karen Jr., who dialed the number. Karen Jr. began conversing with Morgan, telling her that they had met at one of the local clubs and wanted to know if she was interested in partying that night. Apparently, Morgan accepted the invitation, and the plan was put into motion. Brock parked his tow truck outside the club and waited. Sure enough, Morgan arrived in the pink monstrosity, parked it, and entered with some friends. Brock allowed them 5 minutes before stealthily approaching the car and hooking it up. Just as he was pulling away with the pink vehicle, Morgan walked out of the club. She spotted her car on the tow truck and attempted to attract Brock's attention, but he was already on his way. The following day, it was business as usual at the office when Morgan called. She was furious that her car was stolen by them and demanded its return. Karen, employing her best customer service tone, informed her that if she had the registration, she could come and retrieve it. Morgan shouted louder, threatening to call the police, at which point Karen mockingly told her, "Please do," and hung up. As this phone call unfolded, Brock glanced out the window and noticed Morgan next to a car in a vacant lot, appearing to throw a temper tantrum. After Karen hung up, Brock observed her getting into the car on the passenger side. Karen then looked outside and had Brock confirm it was her. A smirk formed on her face. Karen proceeded to contact the owner of the property where Morgan and her friend were parked. She informed the owner about the vehicle and inquired if he wanted it towed. The owner approved. Brock then approached the women in the car and introduced himself. They attempted to clarify that they were waiting for Morgan's boyfriend, but Brock insisted they were not permitted to park there. A heated argument ensued, during which they hurled insults at him. Brock hooked up their car and lifted it partially off the ground, compelling the two to exit the vehicle. They continued berating him until he displayed the tow order. While this exchange was happening, Ben arrived at the office, and Morgan spotted him walk in. She hurried to the office door as Brock began to lower the car. Upon Brock's return to the office, chaos erupted. Morgan allegedly attempted to snatch the keys back from Ben, but he pocketed them. She began striking him on his injured arm, warning him that she would call her friends to finish the job if she did not receive her keys back. Karen Jr. had already notified the police by this time, and Brock stepped between Ben and Morgan, even challenging Morgan to strike him to see what would transpire. Morgan then attempted to play the sympathy card, claiming she just wanted the keys to retrieve her laptop for school. Karen asked Ben to hand the keys over to Brock so he could fetch the laptop. Brock removed the laptop from the car, and as he was about to give it to her, she lunged forward and aggressively tried to grab it, causing it to fall from Brock's hands. At this point, utterly furious, Morgan accused Brock of intentionally dropping the computer and threatened to sue. The police arrived, and Morgan began her sob story again, telling the officers that they had stolen her car. The police questioned Karen, who casually smirked while asking if they wished to see the security footage. The officers observed and listened as Morgan punched Ben several times and heard her threats about sending her friends after him. The police then turned to Morgan, who had gone pale at this point. She attempted to inch her way toward the door, but the police blocked her path. They proceeded to inquire about the car, Ben's injuries, and who she intended to send after him. Initially, she denied everything, but they already had evidence of her assault on him. She was arrested, and Ben reclaimed his vehicle. After the police departed, Ben confessed that he did not want to be seen driving a car that resembled a Pepto-Bismol advertisement and planned to trade it for a GTO. We later heard through the grapevine that the 4 men who assaulted Ben were also apprehended. Morgan had betrayed them. Brock had several more stories, but none compared to this one. Edit unbelievably, within an hour, this has gained quite the attention. Thank you, everyone. Also, TLDR, a vindictive girlfriend tried to steal her boyfriend's car, got him assaulted, but a helpful Karen ensured he got it back. Edit 2. Wow, I truly appreciate all the support. I am thrilled that so many people have enjoyed this story. I've had a few individuals attempt to dismiss this account, but I assure you it is entirely true. I have no motive to fabricate such a tale. Some are questioning how this is considered pro-revenge. Although Ben did not personally carry out the revenge, Karen was the architect of Morgan's downfall. She orchestrated Morgan's loss of the car after Ben and his friend were unable to locate it on their own. Ultimately, Morgan's fate was largely a result of her own actions. She believed she could intimidate an injured man with multiple witnesses while making threats. Additionally, while gang activity was relatively prevalent in the Killeen, Texas area, I am not entirely sure if those involved were affiliated with any gangs. I wanted to clarify that last part. Story 2. OMG, my nephew, once my close buddy, just cut off family ties over politics. How did we go from laughs to this shocking divide? Flushed face. My family is very close. We have always been that way. We do not just share holidays together, we also enjoy many days in between. Occasionally, we even go on vacation together. My sister is my closest friend in this world. Her youngest child is my only child's favorite companion. Although they are 4 years apart, their age difference does not matter now that they are older. I mention this because the closeness of our family is significant for the rest of my narrative. The following will primarily focus on my sister, her eldest son, and myself. Her son, who is 27 years old, has recently displayed concerning behavior that has severely affected our entire family. I am sitting here feeling entirely devastated. My nephew has hurt his mother, my sister, and I am filled with sadness and anger. There is nowhere for me to express these feelings or store them away. They just continue to weigh heavily on my heart. So here I am. My nephew reached out to me about 3 weeks ago, late at night after 11 p.m. I had just endured a long and exhausting day. At 47, I'm facing some new health challenges and had recently undergone medical appointments and tests. After returning home, I helped my child with homework, prepared dinner, and spent quality time with my husband and daughter. Once they went to bed, I was left with worries about the test results. That was when I received the message, "Are you awake?" I replied that I was and inquired if everything was all right. He began discussing a Nazi salute and asked for my opinion. I requested forgiveness, explaining that I needed to respond the following day because I hadn't seen or read anything about it. He agreed, but continued to message me. Recognizing that this issue was weighing heavily on him, I asked, "Do you mean he gave a metaphorical salute, or did he literally salute as if he were one?" He confirmed he was indeed giving a salute. I told him I needed a moment to gather my thoughts. I turned to YouTube to find more information. I viewed several news reports from various sources, both liberal and conservative. Each outlet seems to be promoting their own agenda, and the truth often lies somewhere in between. I returned to inform him that, upon watching it with the sound off, I would definitely interpret it as a salute. However, when I viewed it in context, both the moments leading up to and following the incident, it seemed more like his unusual behavior. He is an eccentric person and often acts in a disorderly manner. It was clear he was significantly overstimulated, which is common among autistic individuals. When I watched it, I laughed to myself and thought, if I hadn't been searching for a salute, I would not have seen it that way. He then remarked that I sounded like a 1936 New York Times opinion piece regarding Adolf Hitler. This took me by surprise. He and I had, or so I thought, a wonderful relationship. I found it hard to process what he was saying, so I asked him to clarify. But he did not elaborate. Instead, he went on about how he was undeniably saluting and how the crowd's reaction made him feel physically sick. "They cheered for him," he stated. Having never encountered this side of him before, I exclaimed, "Let's put a stop to this discussion. Right now." I explained that, as family, we needed to be cautious with our words to avoid saying things we might later regret. By we, I meant him. Engaging in political discussions with someone who is highly passionate and sensitive is a recipe for disaster. Why would anyone, knowing that continuing a conversation could negatively impact a vital relationship, proceed to a point of no return? Yet he told me he felt embarrassed by me, stating he had not realized I would blindly follow anything. But here you are, blind to the truth and a Nazi fascist. I can't believe you are from the same family tree I am. I was stunned for a moment. I have known him his entire life. I was present the day he was born. I held him, fed him, and changed his diapers. I comforted him through heartbreaks and met every girlfriend who did not meet his standards. I attended every one of his graduations. Who is this young man he has become? I typed back, "I am going to bed. Good night, I love you." He bombarded me with numerous text messages containing similar remarks. It frightened me not in the way one might be startled by nearly stepping in front of a car, but rather as if I were witnessing someone's mental breakdown. I could not bring myself to respond to anything he wrote. I cried for him for the next 3 hours until I finally drifted off to sleep. I hesitated to inform my sister about this interaction, as I did not want her to see her son in such distress. She cares for him deeply. I struggled with my decision in the following days, and then my sister called me. He had done the same to her, announcing he would no longer be in contact with her. What? Just like that, is everyone in our family cut off and blocked? He moved out of our state to be with a girl he met years ago, whom he recently married. My poor sister is shattered, and I feel powerless to mend it. She cries constantly, and he... What is he? What on earth has happened to my nephew? I had just seen him in mid-January and was sending him pictures of my cat. Now this. I knew he held liberal views. That's fine, who cares? I never criticized him for it. He has a right to his beliefs, just as I do, and life continues on. When it was only my side that endured his harsh words, I felt sad. But witnessing my sister's pain fills me with anger. I am enraged by the overwhelming fear propagated by the media, which has successfully instilled fear in people. I am furious that this political nonsense has created a rift at a time when my mother, his grandmother, is in the final stages of her life, and he is missing these moments that I know he will come to regret. What if something happens to his mother or sister? He is off panicking and fixating on politics, while I am losing my sanity over potentially losing him. I have observed, in news reports and various videos, that liberals are incredibly agitated. Honestly, I initially thought much of it was satire. I have seen women shaving their heads in response to political events and crying in TikTok videos. I have witnessed the anger in their expressions and read comments regarding felonies and assaults. I was unaware that this was so serious. I genuinely do not comprehend it. I simply do not care that much. I stay informed about world events. Regardless of the mistakes made by the former president, I never felt the need to cut ties with family and friends who supported him. In the grand scheme of things, family will always take precedence over politics for me. As I conclude this, I want to mention a couple of things. Upon realizing what was happening, I searched for others experiencing similar feelings from both perspectives. I want to understand. I want my nephew back. Love will mitigate the harm, and time will help mend the wounds. But what could possibly drive someone to completely alienate themselves from those who care for them? That is not love. It is intense hatred. In my search for understanding, I found that this is occurring for countless others across the nation. And it seems to be primarily the left who are severing ties with the right. If you have made it this far with me, thank you. I realize this is lengthy. But just knowing that someone out there can relate to my experience, by reading this makes me feel less alone.